If you're planning a brand, decorating a room in your house, or deciding what your personal style is going to look like, I recommend you go back to your earliest influences. Rather than pulling from things that are trending or things that you see other people doing, pull from the things that have created you, that have made you into the person that you are today. I'm a brand designer, and every time I ask my clients to tell me their inspiration sources, I truly want them to get specific. Everyone can say that they're influenced by Gothic media or by folklore, but what does that truly mean? Generic statements don't give me any real insight into who you are. I want to know if there's a certain book that you read in adolescence that changed the way you viewed the world, or maybe changed the way you viewed yourself. Is there a movie that makes you yearn to belong to that world every single time you watch it? Have you been traveling and saw a building that spoke to your soul? These are all the things I want to know about you. I want you to get super specific. I'm going to give you some personal examples. It's not to say that I'm some unique person and I'm the only one that has these specific interests, but I can guarantee that I'm the only person who has been impacted by this specific equation of influences in the most soul-touching way. So I'm going to share those, and then I want you to start thinking about what those influences look like in your life. When I was about 12 years old, I read Tithe by Holly Black for the first time, and it was the first time that I had ever read a book that depicted fairies the way that I envisioned them. Not pinks and sparkles, but a little dark and a little gritty. Fairy novels are really popular right now, but they weren't back then. For the better part of 20 years, I pretty much starved in between releases from authors diving into the fairy realm. Another iconic early influence of mine was Dita Von Teese. She was one of the most popular mainstream burlesque performers of the time. I cut out pictures of her and clipped them to my wall. I aspired to do something like that in the future as I got older. In elementary school, I constantly checked out the Flower Fairy book from the school library, but it wasn't until I went into a boutique and saw Amy Brown's art for the first time that I saw fairies depicted visually with a darker aesthetic. It was whimsical, it was gothic, and of course she has had many people try to recreate her style since then, but she really pioneered this kind of whimsy-gothic aesthetic for her fairy art. Another prolific influence of mine was the TV series Charmed. That was one of the first times I really fell in love with Victorian-esque architecture. That TV show, along with the movies and the novels I was reading at the time, really solidified my desire to live in a Victorian home of my own someday. I'm still working towards that. Like I said in the beginning, these might not be totally groundbreaking and unique, but they did influence me in a way that has transcended decades. It has influenced the way that I live my life, the way that I dress, the way that I decorate, and the way that I design brands for my clients. If you haven't given your adolescent influences a thought in quite a while, maybe even decades, I want you to take some time to do that right now. Go ahead and write down 5 to 10 early influences that you have. I found that I have influences all the way back from 5 years old, but my main, most impactful influences came around the age of 12. That might look different for you, so just try to reach back into your memory and see what comes up. Ask yourself if these early influences shaped you or if you were just seeing yourself in them for the first time, or maybe both. Once you have your list of early influences, I want you to look and see how they've grown and evolved as you've gotten older. Have they led you to a new interest? Have they led you to an adjacent aesthetic? Like I said, Dita Von Teese was one of my first introductions into the burlesque world, but since then, I've been to many burlesque and cabaret shows. While I completely adore the old school, glamorous showgirl aesthetic, I actually really prefer the more new age burlesque, specifically burlesque that leans into a darker aesthetic or storyline. And my love of Victorian homes very quickly led to a love of Victorian customs, traditions, and fashion. Pay attention to how these influences change the way you see the world, or change the way you see yourself, or maybe just gave you a really cool aesthetic that you would love for the rest of your life. Try to find a common theme throughout your influences. Is there a similar aesthetic, style, storyline, something that drew you to each and every one of your influences? What is that? Because if you can pinpoint what that thing is, you're going to open yourself up to so many other cool influences and interests. These early influences have such a huge tie back into your personal identity, and you can carry that through everything you do in life, from the job that you do, like me, becoming a brand designer, to the way you decorate your house, to the way you dress, and the way you live your life. How could your childhood love of fairies influence your fashion choices? How could your love of the house from Charmed influence the way you decorate your home? How can you infuse your love of vampires into your brand? Now it's up to you to create a mix of your early inspirations and your modern inspirations to create something that's truly unique and authentic to you, something that will stand out from everyone else. Because I want you to remember that spark that you felt when you were first introduced to those influences. I want every day to feel like reading your favorite book for the first time again. Because your life, your brand, your home, your style, it's all what you make it and what you want it to be. So why not make it be everything that you are? I'm Loon Cassell, and if you're into aesthetic rebellion, creative storytelling, and the art of self-expression, you're in the right place.